According to the Canadian government, Canada needs approximately 22 million homes by the year 2030. And that number includes 650,000 homes needed right here in Manitoba. But I'm not here to talk about those stats. I'm here to talk about the often forgotten stat, the one that says we need 3.5 million social housing units across this country for low-income Canadians. I'm here to talk about my journey growing up in the inner city of Winnipeg in social housing, then going on to serve in the Premier's office, and eventually starting my own real estate development firm on the front lines delivering social housing in this province. In Manitoba, there's currently 10,000 people on a waiting list for social housing. And that number continues to increase as Manitoba Housing, our social housing provider, continues to sell off these critical assets to the private sector with nothing replacing them. And for families lucky enough to land a social housing unit like my family did almost 25 years ago, they'll often find these units in deteriorating condition, infested by bed bugs and cockroaches, and living in communities that are riddled by crime and violence. So you might be asking yourself, why would anyone choose to live this way? And the reality is, for so many Canadians, this is not a choice, but rather a reality, as they cannot afford market rental rates or even CMHC affordable guideline rates due to a variety of social conditions. On September 28, 2023, I came across an article titled Housing in Ruins. What haunted me about this article is that this building was across the street from where I grew up. These people, they were my neighbors. And although I was reading this article from the comfort of my suburban home, I still felt bonded by the shared trauma of knowing what it feels like waking up to the stinging feeling of bedbugs crawling up your arm, having to heat your home in the -40 winters using your stove, or having police sirens as background noise when you're trying to cook dinner. This is what my former neighbors call home. And you might be looking at this photo and asking yourself, surely nobody's paying to live here. What may shock you is that this studio apartment costs $700 a month. And what's even more shocking is that the average studio apartment in Winnipeg today costs over $900 a month. And when you're on social assistance receiving an income of $887 a month, it is no wonder why so many Canadians are choosing to live here if the alternative is living on the streets. So how do we get here? Things weren't always this bad, of course. In fact, after World War II, the federal government created the Wartime Housing Corporation, which built over 46,000 homes for returning World War II soldiers. And this was done for two reasons. One, it's the right thing to do for those who went out and served their country. And two, it was done to kickstart the staggering post-World War economy. By 1949, the federal government amended the National Housing Act to allow for joint provincial and federal partnerships. And by the 1960s and 70s, the federal government was the largest supplier of social housing across this country. These investments didn't just mean that a readily supply and access to quality housing for everyone who needed it across this country, but virtually every social cost metric related to healthcare, to education, to economic participation, and yes, even the GDP was improved as a direct result of these investments in housing. We often forget that when we deliver social housing to people, we're not just putting a roof over their head. We're giving this person the opportunity to better their lives, get an education, get job training, get employment, and better their communities. Yet, when we look at healthcare spending in this country proportionate to our GDP from the 1970s to 2018, we notice a few remarkable facts. Between the 1970s to the 1990s, the federal government spent approximately 7 to 8% of our GDP on healthcare. However, after the 1990s, when we stopped investing in social housing, that number continued to balloon to 12% in 2018. And that number has continued to increase year after year as a contributing factor to these cuts in social housing. After the 1990s, the federal government stopped investing in social housing, leaving provinces and underfunded municipalities tasked with the mounting challenge of filling this need. And today, we see who's paying the price for these public policy decisions on the streets across this country and outside of this building. So where do we go from here? Well, there's some promising news. In fact, since 2017, the federal government has been increasingly pressured to increase its supply of housing. But there's two problems with this plan. First, it virtually ignores the growing need for social housing in this country. And second, CMHC affordability guidelines are a slap in the face to every Canadian who's truly searching for affordable housing. According to CMHC, in order to qualify as affordable housing, rent should not exceed more than 30% of a region's median income. And that sounds great at face value until you consider the fact that in a region like Manitoba, where the average income is $56,000 a year, $1,400 a month is considered affordable housing. $1,400 a month is not affordable housing. I don't think you all got that, so I want you to say it out loud with me. $1,400 a month is not affordable. You guys have a beautiful voice. I want to hear it louder. $1,400 a month is not affordable housing. Thank you. In order to truly provide affordable housing in this country, we need to once again provide income-geared rents, which simply means that rent should not exceed more than 30% of an individual's income. And in fact, we've had some remarkable examples of this model working right here in Manitoba. This is the Marie Rose Place, built in 2014 as a public-private partnership to provide housing to immigrant and refugee women in this province. What's remarkable about this building is at first glance, it is nearly impossible to distinguish it from any luxury condo building across this country. Yet this property was actually built according to the province's affordable building guidelines. And for any builder out there, you know how difficult that is to achieve. What's even more remarkable about the Marie Rose Place is that within a few short years, many of these women who live in this place have been able to get the education, the job training, and the permanent employment and permanent housing that they need. The Marie Rose Place challenges our conventional idea of what social housing in this province and this country should look like and what the poorest of society deserve. And in 2016, I was honored to broker a public-private partnership to provide housing to over 100 Syrian refugee families in this province. But I wanted to go beyond just providing housing. In fact, I wanted to partner with local settlement service providers doing incredible work in our communities to provide direct on-site support, something I wish my family had almost 25 years ago. I will never forget the mother of two young children who reminded me of my own mother when we first came to this country. When I was showing them their brand new apartment and the brand new IKEA furniture that me and a team of volunteers had frantically built the night before, something I don't look forward to doing anytime soon, so don't ask me, I will always remember her youngest child jumping up on his bed, hugging his pillow, asking his mother over and over again, "Is this mine? Is this all really mine?" His mother, with tears in her eyes, turns to me and she says, "This is the first time my child has had his own bed and his own pillow since being born in a refugee camp." I walked away from that experience with a new sense of purpose. For me, this goes beyond just providing housing. This is about providing people the dignity, the respect, and the second chance that they deserve. You see, the conversation around social housing can sound like a very complex one, but the solution is simple. And it is simple because we've done it before successfully as a country. But the government cannot do it alone. The government needs to once again be a leader in delivering social housing, but they need to do it in partnership with the private sector. And I'll tell you this, from my time serving in provincial government or out there in the private sector, I found no shortage of will from either side willing to do their part to fulfill this mandate. But the government needs to come back to the table as a true leader to once again provide social housing, quality social housing at income-geared rents. My friends, my family and I, we were lucky to escape the horrors of social housing in this country. But for the millions of Canadians who are currently living in social housing or desperately on a waiting list for one, there has to be a better way. there is a better way. I hope that you will join me on my mission to revolutionize the way we deliver social housing in this country. Thank you. Miigwech. Merci.